October 5th, 1892. 5 armed men rode into the small Kansas town of Coffeyville with a plan so bold it sounded almost impossible. They weren't there to rob one bank. Nope, they were there to rob 2 at the same time in broad daylight. The leader of the gang, Bob Dalton, believed he was about to pull off the greatest robbery the American West had ever seen. Bigger than Jesse James, bigger than the Youngers, bigger than any outlaw gang that had come before. Within a few hours, most of his gang would be dead. The streets of Coffeyville would be littered with bodies. Hundreds of rounds would be fired. And one of the most famous outlaw gangs in American history would effectively cease to exist. But the story of the Dalton Gang didn't begin in Coffeyville. It began with a family of brothers who were supposed to be wearing badges instead of masks. Some of them had served as lawmen. Some had hunted criminals. Before it was over, they would become some of the most wanted outlaws in the American West. Outlaws and Gunslingers. Real stories, the way they actually happened. James Lewis Dalton from Jackson County, Missouri, in Kentucky was the father of all 4 of those Dalton boys in this gang. He was a saloon keeper in Kansas City, Missouri, when he married Adeline Lee Younger. Through her half-brother, Adeline was an aunt of Cole and Jim Younger of the famous James Younger gang.
Right.
Although the Daltons may have been inspired by their famous cousin's exploits, the Youngers were ironically much older and were in prison at the time of the Dalton gang's activities.
That's true.
They just wanted to be little fucks.
Right. Let's take a look at the old children for Dalton. Well, you got Charles Benjamin Dalton. They call him Ben.
We'll learn about him.
Right. He was born in 1852, tragically passed away in 1936.
Oh, wait, we won't learn about him.
Henry Coleman Dalton, they call him Cole, 1853 to 1920.
Damn, lived pretty long lives.
Littleton Lee Dalton, they call him Lit, 1857, 1942.
Damn.
Then you got old Frankie Dalton, 1859, 1887.
That's the Dalton we'll learn. That's the older brother.
Then you had Grat and Hanley Grat Dalton. He survived the old Coffeyville, but not too much longer after that. 1861, 1892. Mason Frakes Dalton. They called him Bill Dalton. 1863.
Grat did not survive.
1894. Then you had Eva Mae Dalton. She was just a sweet little girl. 1867, 1939. Then you had Robert Rennick Dalton. They call him Bob. 1869, 1892. That faithful day in Coffeyville. Emmett Dalton. 1871 and 1937. Then you had Leona Randolph Dalton, 1875 and 1964.
Damn.
Then you had Nancy Mae Dalton, 1876 and 1901. Ooh. Damn, cholera got there or something.
25, huh?
Then you
He's
had
actually older than Bob.
right. Then you had Simon Noel Dalton. They call him C or Cy.
Sorry.
1878 to 1928.
He wasn't that old either, huh?
The brothers who were members of the Dalton gang were Bob, Grat, Emmett, and Bill.
Yeah, Emmett's the one that got
Emmett's the
fucked,
one,
though.
Emmett's the one that survived.
Yeah, and he got shot like 27 times, which we'll see. Obviously, you guys know how we do it. We go through the early life before we get to that famous day in Coffeyville. Coffeyville. November 27th, 1887, Frank Dalton and another Deputy Marshal, Jim Cole, went across the river from Fort Smith to arrest 3 whiskey bootleggers. Mm-hmm. As they approached the camp, the bootleggers begin to fire.
I mean, why not?
Frank shot and killed 2, but his gun jammed, and he was killed by the remaining bootleggers.
Oh, shit.
His deputy abandoned him after being wounded. Frank is buried in Coffeyville, Kansas.
Damn.
After Frank's death, Grat moved back from California and took over his brother's job as deputy marshal at Fort Smith.
He did.
He also brought Bob along as a posse member. August 1888, the 2 formed a posse to arrest a man named Charlie Montgomery.
Well, fantastic. Well, Montgomery, he was alleged to be posing as a deputy marshal. Bob discovered his location on Timber Hills while Grat was away searching in Coffeyville and went ahead to lead the posse in making the arrest himself.
The arrest.
Right, before Montgomery could escape the old territory. The stakeout ended in Montgomery's death, which usually happened back then. January 1889, Grat and Bob both became deputies, first under Marshal Jones and later under Marshal R. Walker in Wichita, that is Kansas. Looking to earn more money, Bob also became part of the Osage Nation police force, in addition to his job as a deputy.
Oh, look at that.
That's fantastic. Unlike the marshal's office, the Osage police paid a monthly salary.
What the hell were they getting from the marshal's office?
Like a yearly salary.
Bi-yearly?
Right. Bob also hired Emmett under him to guard prisoners.
Look at these guys.
We can go make some money.
Well, see, they're on the right side of the law right now.
Right. Usually how it goes.
Well, night of February 6, 1891, 2 masked men carrying .44 caliber revolvers held up a Southern Pacific Railroad passenger train near the town of Elila. which is present-day Earl Mark, California. Outlaws had worn masks during the Lila robbery, concealing their identities, clearly. Some years later, Lit Dalton asserted that Bob and Emmett had told him many times that they were indeed the ones that robbed the train.
Indeed, right? Bob and Emmett were hiding out in a ranch barn a mile west of Malaga. After arriving, the brothers talked until morning. Lit noticed that Grat's horse was indeed limp and agreed to help Grat sell it. Since the horse was lame, they could only get $60 for it only.
$60 is a lot.
And Grat was unable to find another horse afterwards. So Grat shipped his saddle and riding rig to Delano and took the train to Traver, where he met Bob and Emmett. He goes, let's take the train. It's a little easier ride. They played poker all night in Traver and then traveled to Tulare to do the same. They had been following the Southern Pacific pay car as it made its way down the valley from Oakland to Bakersfield to pay railroad employees. This train was always accompanied by a crowd of gamblers and prostitutes, and Grat and Bob had followed the pay car together several times before. Oh, look at these guys.
As like lawmen?
All right.
So now they're like, this is be so easy just to get this shit.
Right.
Why are we doing all this when we can just rob these? In the 2 weeks following the robbery, Bob and Emmett hid out in the mountains near Bill's ranch. Bill left his brother supplies and food and obtained horses to evade pursuit. Despite these efforts, Bill was arrested in Paso Robles by Sheriff Kay and taken to Visalia.
Right.
After hearing, Bill was held for trial for the Lila robbery, but he secured bonds and was released.
Fantastic. Sheriff Kay decided to pursue Bob and Emmett with his deputy, Jim Ford. Kay tracked Daltons to their mother's home and kept watch of the house for a few days before being forced to return to King's Fisher because of bad weather. Why? Well, you have to leave somewhere and just hunker down, but everybody else that's there just not leaving.
Well, they also have houses.
Right. When he returned the next day to watch the house, he discovered that Bob and Emmett had escaped, well, obviously. Kay talked to their mother for several hours, and she even invited him in for breakfast. She denied any wrongdoing by her son, stating that they were, in fact, lawmen, and told Kay they had gone to Guthrie if he wanted to talk with them. They're in Guthrie. There's some law-abiding citizens just like you.
We can go sort this out. Kay and Ford traveled the 50 miles to Guthrie, but soon came into problems when dealing with different tribal jurisdictions. At Guthrie, Kay and Ford noticed that there had been some sort of celebration the night before, as they were greeted by 3 white men hanging from a large tree at the entrance of town.
Oh, no.
And noticed the streets were lined with several groups of black men playing craps on the sidewalks.
Of course they were.
Oh, geez. Kay found out that before they had arrived, Bob and Emmett had gotten to a fight at one of the saloons there and badly beat up 2 cowboys before leaving for Topeka. So what's the significance of the black men playing craps on the sidewalks? Are they trying to insinuate that they hung the white guys?
Right. What they got going on there?
What the hell? So that's a change of pace, though, huh? Coming into town and seeing white guys hanging from a tree and black guys doing stuff. They're like, what is this?
Like, wow.
Where are we at?
Right. Sheriff Kay was forced to give up the chase in order to return to California for Grat's trial. The Daltons had plenty of friends in the area willing to hide them and easily lost Kay once they were in familiar territory. After they realized they were no longer being pursued, Bob and Emmett, they began to form what would be known as the Dalton Gang.
Well, for the first 4 months that Bob and Emmett spent trying to lose Sheriff Kay in the desert, Grat sat at the Tulare County Jail in Visalia awaiting his trial. After securing bonds, Bill immediately went to Merced and hired John W. Breckenridge, the best attorney in the San Joaquin Valley, to defend Grat. What Bill didn't know is that Breckenridge was also a consultant attorney for the Southern Pacific Railroad. Oh, no. To help pay him the $2,000 they asked for, Bill sold almost all of his horses and mules.
Oh, wow.
Oh, geez. So this dude's going to defend them against the train that they robbed, that he's also representing.
Right. Holy shit. The mother also came to California from King's Fisher to pay Breckenridge after she mortgaged her home and borrowed money from neighbors. Great. She then traveled to Visalia with her 2 daughters, as well as her sons, Ben, Cole, Lit, and Bill. They did that all for Grat's trial. All for Grat.
All for Grat.
Grat's trial didn't start until that June, and it lasted 3 weeks. Though much of the evidence showed that Grat was in Fresno the night of the Lila robbery, including the testimony of several witnesses, the influence of the powerful Southern Pacific Railroad caused him to receive an unfair trial.
Well, Breckenridge showed up to the trial late and drunk, and neither the defense nor the prosecution mentioned that the fireman had been accidentally killed by the expressman. Oh, in the robbery. So the guy that was supposed to protect it was actually the one that killed him. This is unknown to Grat since the Dalton brothers had all assumed that Emmett had killed the fireman.
Right.
Almost all of Breckenridge's witnesses were barkeepers, gamblers, saloon hanger-ons, or pimps. Sheriff Kay even pointed out during the trial that Breckenridge had overlooked Grat's rights. Southern Pacific Detective Will Smith, going straight into the wild, wild west, right, visited Grat's cell almost every day during the trial to try to get a confession out of him, and Grat began to despise Smith. Said, shut the fuck up, dude. I told you 100 times I ain't telling you shit.
Right. Well, Kay knew this. Besides Breckenridge's sabotage of the case, Grat would probably be found innocent, and their case against Bob and Emmett would fall through. Towards the end of the
So Breckenridge showed up drunk on purpose.
Right.
Like to be a dick. Wow. They should kill that guy.
Mm-hmm. Towards the end of the trial, Sheriff Kay, Detective Smith, and District Attorney Power, they talked to Grat while taking him back to his cell from the courtroom when Breckenridge wasn't present. Kay told Grat that he knew neither Bob or Emmett killed the fireman. We know that.
Well, he offered to admit this in court if Grat and Bill told the true story of the robbery.
Wow.
Detective Smith decided to chime in, but Grat said he wouldn't say a word while Smith was present because he hated him. Smith was told to leave, and both Bill and Grat agreed to tell their story.
Okay.
But only if they showed that there was no first-degree murder in the robbery.
Mm-hmm.
The Daltons told their stories, but neither Kay nor Breckenridge ever cleared up the murder point and ruined Grat's
Oh,
case.
my God.
Wow. Come on, Grat.
Wow. Well, Grat was taken back to jail to wait his sentence. While in jail, a train robbery occurred near Ceres on the 3rd of September, 1891, but was very unsuccessful because there was no money that was taken. The only evidence found at the robbery was a coat made from a tailor from Visalia. Kay suspected that this was probably the work of some suspects he had from Visalia. But the railroad detectives demanded the rest of the remaining Dalton brothers.
I was like, I know they're the ones that did it. But I'm like, no, dude, I think this is somebody else.
Oh,
nope.
okay.
Well, Kay telegraphed his deputy, George Whitty, and told him to check on Bill Dalton and to immediately notify him when he was found. Kay checked on his Visalia suspects, who at the time were running a livery stable in Modesto, and was convinced they were not involved in the series robbery. He then went to Fresno to check on Litt and Cole Dalton and was convinced of the same.
Wow. So, come on now. When Kay returned to Visalia, he immediately went with Detective Smith to the tailor of the coat found at the series robbery. The tailor remembered the coat, but he did not remember who'd bought it. Only that some girl had picked it up once it was clean. After Kay finished talking to the cleaner, Deputy George Whitty reported to him that telegrams from Coast said that Bill was not in Paso Robles or Estrella. Neither was he in Merced or Livingston. What else you got? Where else was he?
Right.
Whitty did have a clue from another deputy that two strange men had been seen hanging around after dark on the open plain near Traver and at the abandoned overland stage station at Cross Creek.
Kay suspected that Bob and Emmett might be back in California to free Grat from jail and took Deputy Whitty with him to the Cross Creek station on his buggy. Late in the afternoon, Kay and Whitty were about 400 yards from the station when they saw two men crouching as they crossed the road from the old stage barn to the station.
All right.
Kay's buggy was directly facing the setting sun, so they could not tell who they were. The road curved behind some willow trees, and Kay told Whitty to drive past the house, passing close to the door, and then to drive back. Well, that's not suspicious.
Wow. With his revolver in hand, Kay dropped to the ground as they passed the door and slowly entered the station. Maggie Rucker, the woman who once ran the Cross Creek Overland Station, was sitting with another girl alone in the front room, silently making dresses.
What?
Cool. Kay asked Rucker if there was anyone else around, and she replied that there wasn't. Right as she said this, Kay heard someone rush across the floor of an adjoining room, and through the crack in the door, he could see a man taking position at the window.
Uh-oh. Okay, moved quietly across the floor and pushed the door a little farther open with his revolver.
And he's probably looking at the chick. She's like, you lying bitch.
Right. Standing with his back towards him was Bill Dalton, watching the horses and buggy Kay had just left while nervously working the lever of his Winchester.
Oh, wow.
Kay nudged the door open with his elbow, aimed his revolver at Bill, and said, "Bill, hello." Bill, thrown off his guard, quickly turned around and mimicked the greeting. "Kay, hello." They then threw the butt of his Winchester to the ground, and the two nervously laughed at each other.
What? Wow.
Well, Bill threw his to the ground. Kay didn't.
Right. Well, Kay
Nervously laughed at each other. Like, we literally almost just killed each other here, guys.
All right. Well, Kay, he had Bill put his rifle down. Said, "Bill, put your rifle down." Backed him into the front room. Checked him for any other weapons. When they came back into the front room, both Maggie Rucker and the girl remained quiet, as they both expected Kay to have been murdered.
Oh, see, they were setting him up. Look, these dirty bitches.
Deputy Whitty entered shortly after and was told by Kay to go in the room and grab Bill's rifle. As Whitty entered the room, he heard a noise come from somewhere else inside the house. Thinking it might be Bob, Kay demanded that Bill tell him where he was. Bill told Kay that Bob was not in this country and that he had stopped at Recker's place alone and spend the night.
Well, Kay knew this was untrue, as he said he just seen two men cross the road.
Well, that's not true.
He soon discovered a worn place in the carpet and found a trapdoor hidden underneath.
Really?
He had Bill lift the carpet and open the trapdoor, and instead of Bob, they discovered a man named Riley Dean, who was a saloon hanger-on from Visalia and Traver.
He's like, who knows this guy?
He's like, we met him in a saloon. He just came with us.
Right.
It became apparent to Kay that Bill had been busy hiding Dean when he arrived. Otherwise, they would have heard him come in.
Okay.
Kay decided to place both men under arrest and took them to Visalia. So what's up with this Dean guy? Riley Dean. Huh?
Check that out. See who that guy is, right? After Bill and Riley Dean were brought to the Visalia jail, Sheriff Purvis of the Stanislaus County, Detective Will Smith, and Wells Fargo detectives Hume and Thacker, they arrived to bring the two men to Modesto to stand trial for the series robbery.
They didn't commit.
Right. When Bill and Dean were acquitted, Bill was rearrested by Kay after his bondsmen were convinced to withdraw by Detective Hume.
Oh, they made his bond guys say no.
Bullshit. He was then taken back to
Visalia.
Visalia.
He's acquitted, so it doesn't matter.
Right, for another one, though. He was then taken back to Visalia to await his trial for the Alila robbery. Bill was interviewed by the Fresno Expositor in September 1891. He said this: "The truth is, I'm like Patty Miles's boy. No matter what goes wrong or what depredation is committed, Bill Dotlin is always charged with the same."
Who's Patty Miles? The story?
Patty Miles's boy.
Yeah, I don't know who Patty Miles is. Sorry, guys. If you guys know, let us know.
Yeah, let us know about Patty Miles's boy.
Right. Bob and Emmett, meanwhile, had been busy in Oklahoma forming their gang. Oh, after their unsuccessful career in California, they decided they could do much better in their home country. And unlike their first attempts, they began carefully planning their robberies. As a former lawman, Bob knew the difficulty officers had enforcing laws in Indian and Oklahoma territories. While the Indian nations had their own tribal law enforcement, these agencies had no jurisdiction over non-Indians, though.
Oh, no shit.
The newly formed Oklahoma Territory had organized their own sheriff and city police departments, but there was so far very little cooperation between them.
All right.
So they're like, yeah, man, this is like for real Wild West.
Wow. Well, the only agencies with jurisdiction over the whole territory was the U.S. Marshal Service. But it was quickly becoming fragmented due to the power struggles between newly formed district courts and jealousy between marshals over their different jurisdictions. Oh, man, yeah. More government caused more problems. There was also little incentive among deputy marshals to search for potentially dangerous outlaws. They're like, why? Their only pay being for fees and a set amount for each criminal they arrested. Unless there was a high enough reward being offered, they would insist to choose to focus their attention on petty criminals.
Right, we're going to get paid the same anyways.
Right. Like, I'm good.
With Bob as the leader, the boys recruited mostly men who had grown up with them in Oklahoma.
Oh.
First recruited were George Bitter Creek Newcomb and Blackfaced Charlie Bryant,
You racist bastard.
who had received his nickname because of a gunpowder burn on one cheek.
Oh.
Even though Sheriff Kay had given up his pursuit of the boys, they still had $3,000 bounty on their heads, posted by Wells Fargo and the Southern Pacific Railroad, encouraging lawmen in the area to pick up where Kay had left off. $3,000, that's a lot.
You ain't kidding. Leading the pursuit was Bob's old friend, Deputy Marshal Heck Thomas.
Heck.
Whose renowned skills as a deputy kept the gang constantly on the move and in the hiding. Angered by the charges against Grat and Bill, which he knew to be false, old Bob decided that the best way to help his brothers out would be to acquire enough money to pay for the bail and the defense. You got a good plan going on there, bud, to see how you go about getting that money. This resulted in the first robbery at Wharton, which was in May of 1891, where the gang stole $1,200.
Look at that.
Joining afterwards were Bill Doolin, Dick Broadwell, Bill Powers, and Charlie Pierce.
All right. The gang was also assisted by Bob's lover, Eugenia Moore, known by her aliases Tom King and Miss Mondays, who acted as their informant, but also a notorious horse thief and outlaw herself. When not preying on the railroads, the gang spent their time digging out large rooms into the steep hills and the cedar breaks on the North Canadian River.
Oh, shit.
This was on the property of a man named Jim Riley, about 8 miles from the present-day town of Taloga, Oklahoma.
Taloga?
The deep canyons of the area, covered with dwarf cedar and blackjack oaks, made it an ideal hiding place.
Fantastic.
Riley would feed the outlaws and would do the same for any passing officers, but he would never reveal each other's whereabouts to either parties. Well, look at this guy, a partial guy. He's all right. I know that your little cat and mouse game you got going on here. I'll assist you, give you some food, give you some fresh horses maybe.
Right.
And then it's up to you to figure it out.
All right. August 1891, Charlie Bryant spotted in Hennessy, Oklahoma, after leaving the gang's hideout to visit his mother in Mulhall.
Or brother.
Right. The locals who identified him notified a deputy marshal named Ed Short. He arrested Bryant and took him on a train to be committed to the jail at Wichita, Kansas, without notifying Marshal Grimes at Fort Smith. Ignoring the advice of the people of Hennessy, he also took prisoner without a guard. Wow. After the train left Hennessy and was approaching the stop at Wakamis, Oklahoma, Short, he noticed a group of mounted men who looked as if they were trying to beat the train, and he feared it was the Dalton Gang coming to free Bryant. Oh, he's like, maybe I should have brought those damn guards.
Well, Short took the prisoner back and placed him in the baggage car. He then put the baggage man in charge of Bryant and gave him his revolver. Short then went to the rear platform with his rifle. The baggage man carelessly stuck the revolver in a pigeonhole message box and went to work at the other end of the car. Oh, no.
Right.
Without making any noise, Bryant went to the message box and secured the revolver. He then ordered the baggage man to ignore him and go back to his work. He said, all right, whatever. I didn't want to watch you in the first place.
Right. No shit.
Bryant opened the door to the rear platform, and while Short had his attention on the mounted men, shot him in the back point blank.
You bastard. Shooting people in the back.
Point blank.
Wow. With Short, he then turned, and the two shot each other to death.
Oh, damn. So he turned around. They were just like, bang, 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 bang.
Pow, pow. The second train robbery by the Dalton Gang in Oklahoma was at a small station called Leland on September 15th, 1891, about 4 miles north of Wagoneer, which is in Oklahoma. Here, they secured more than $19,000. Many members of the gang, including Emmett, complained that $3,500 each was not enough to meet their needs.
Oh, jeez.
Bill Doolin, he complained that Bob was not dividing the money fairly and accused Bob of squandering their money on women and gamblers. Doolin said, you know what, I quit. And so did Newcomb and Pierce due to the mismanagement of the finances.
Jeez, this was like a modern, or not modern day, but a Wild West, Wild West version of NWA. September 21st, Grat Dalton was brought into court to face sentencing, but this was instead postponed to October 6th. This was a date that Grat had no intention on making. Rumors had circulated for months that Bob had planned to come and liberate Grat, so two of Sheriff K's deputies, Jim Waggy and Bob Hockett, had been hired by Wells Fargo to guard Grat's cell until he was sentenced and sent to San Quentin.
Man, they want this Grat guy.
This was in addition to the jailer, J.M. Williams. One night, Jim Waggy heard a noise in the basement and upon investigation discovered that someone had tried to break the lock to the grated window.
Uh-oh. You can't do that. Wow. He decided to watch outside of the place at night to see if he could catch in the act whoever was trying to open the grating. Waggy hid all night in a yard across the street, but didn't see anything. Didn't bring enough snacks Mountain Dew.
Right.
Instead, he caught a cold from sitting in the fog all night.
I didn't catch nothing but a cold.
Wow. The very next morning, Grat called Waggy over to his cell and asked him where he got such a cold. Waggy told him that he must have slept in a draft. To which Grat replied, yes, it must have been pretty cold in the yard over there last night. Grat could not see the yard Waggy was laid in from his cell, and the deputy hadn't told anyone he had done that night. Wow.
Expecting there to be an escape, and because none of the other deputies would listen to him, Waggy decided to quit. Jeez.
He said, screw this, man.
Getting colds for nothing.
Right.
Night of September 27th, Grat and two cellmates, Arvil Beck and W.B. Smith, escaped from the Tulare County Jail in Visalia while Sheriff K was in San Francisco.
Oh, shit.
At first, it looked to K as if it had been an inside job, as it was obvious Grat had simply unlocked the cell door with a key and broke through the basement window to get out. They did, however, find pieces of a file and a hacksaw blade in the prisoner's toilet.
Oh, no shit. Bill had been in a separate cell from Grat.
Okay, but if they used the saw, you would clearly see that.
Right. Bill, he had been in a separate cell from Grat, located upstairs. When approached by K, Bill told him, the boys were there when I went to sleep. And when I awakened, they had unlocked and gone. Why in the world do you suppose they went away and left me
I was
behind?
just going to say, why didn't they take Bill with them?
Jim Waggy also showed up after the breakout to overlook the scene. By that time, Bill had been moved downstairs into what was Grat's cell. Why?
Oh, idiots.
When Jim approached, Bill said, Jim, the birds have flown. When they entered the cell, Bill took out his guitar, sat on a soapbox, leaned against the bars of the corridor, and began to play a popular song he put his own words to, entitled, You'll Never Miss My Brother Till He's Gone.
Look at these guys just taunting him now. Well, while Bill was playing his guitar, Waggy noticed that he was trying to cover up where the break had been made. One of the bars had been cut out and replaced with a broom handle blackened by soot. Waggy said, here's your hole, and kicked the broom handle onto the floor. Bill immediately threw his guitar on the bed and exclaimed, now what in the world do you know about that? How did they ever cut that bar without me knowing it?
Right. Well, most officers, they believed that Grat immediately escaped the county, but Sheriff Kay, he thought otherwise. After spending a few weeks tracking and arresting Arville Beck and W.B. Smith, Sheriff Kay learned from them that Grat had actually made the opening in the bars several days before the robbery, after being slipped a saw from someone on the outside. The sawing was hid from the jailer by a large box that they would put a blanket over and use to play cards. The cellmates would sing and talk to drown out the sound of the saw.
Excuse me. Well, why do you have a large box in their cell? Number one. Number two, and why would you not search the large box every day? But whatever. Each time they stopped sawing, they plugged the hole with soap and soot. After making the opening, they ran around the corridors, kitchen, and basement for several nights. Oh, right. Nice. Look at them. Probably getting a bunch of shit.
All right.
This is why Grat was able to notice Deputy Waggy hiding in the yard across the street from the jail. The last night, they dug a hole in the brick wall of the wood room, but found heavy iron bars embedded in the wall that they couldn't get in between.
Oh, shit.
They used the bar they had cut out to pry open the grating in the wood room window, and instead of risking going and putting it back, just left the broom handle in its place.
Might as well, right?
Okay, right.
After the escape, Beck, he separated from the others and went north, while Grat and Smith went to a friend of Grat's named Joe Middleton, who lived in Hanford. Grat and Middleton told Smith they planned to hide out in the Coast Range and invited him to come along. Smith instead went north and several weeks later was arrested by Kay. Threatened with prison time, Smith told Kay that Middleton could be followed to Dalton's camp when he carried him supplies.
Snitch. Well, after having a deputy watch Middleton's place, he learned that Middleton was buying enough groceries to last 3 months and was seen driving east of Sanger. Driving? What? It's a cart. When Middleton returned, Kay arrested him at his home and threatened to send him to San Quentin if he didn't give up Grat's hideout. Middleton had been threatened by Dalton for not helping him escape the country fast enough and was afraid of him. He told Kay that Grat's camp was on a steep mountain in the Sierra Nevada, close to the Kings River and about 15 miles northeast of Sanger, but they would never find the place. Too hidden for you guys, man.
Right.
Then I was like, this is where we're going to take you and you're going to show us then.
You ain't kidding. The mountain was a natural fortress, rocky, heavily wooded, with a good view of the surrounding countryside. This mountain would later be known as Dalton Mountain.
Good for them.
He also said that Grat was accompanied by Riley Dean, the man who had been arrested with Bill for the series robbery, as well as a dog.
Oh, nice.
Kay promised Middleton secrecy and a horse and a buggy if he led him to within a half mile of the Dalton's camp. Since Grat's location was in Fresno County, Kay telegraphed Sheriff Hensley in Fresno, and the two made plans to assemble a posse in Centerville. Like, we can do this. Let's assemble a posse.
After pointing out the location of the camp, Middleton left in a hurry, and the two posses spent the night on the living room floor of the nearby Elwood Ranch. The next day, which was Christmas Eve, 1891, the posse of both Sheriff Kay and Sheriff Hensley woke up at 3 in the morning and ascended the mountain to Dalton's camp. It had been raining for several days prior, and it was so cold the ground was covered in ice. The posse reached Dalton's camp at 9 and split into 2 groups in order to surround the camp, Kay leading one, Hensley the other, clearly.
Oh.
Kay and his men made their way to a rock ledge that Middleton told him would bring them within a few feet above Dalton's camp.
Oh. A few feet, huh? Damn. From their position, Kay and his deputies were 50 yards from the Dalton and Dean, who were both discussing their plan to hunt one of Elwood's hogs for Christmas dinner. Kay's deputies were carrying 10-gauge double-barrel shotguns loaded with buckshot. Ooh. And they leveled them at Dalton. There was a moment where Dalton could have been shot in cold blood, and some of Kay's deputies wanted to do it. But Kay and Hensley, they didn't know. That's not what we'll be just like them.
Don't realize how lucky you got, Grat. Got Grat.
Grat and Riley then made their way out of camp with their rifles on their backs, and Kay decided they would set up an ambush and wait for their return. The men split into 3 groups to cover all approaches to the camp. Damn, what if these dudes are like, you know what, let's just not go back.
Let's go somewhere else. Sheriff Hensley and Deputy Ed McCardle were guarding a trail that led to the summit of a small, narrow ridge. Around 11 o'clock, they noticed Dalton and Dean returning from their hunt, so they sent Deputy Perry Bird to go and retrieve Kay.
Man, why don't these, like, Grat and them, why ain't they, like, more aware?
Because they think they're in the wilderness. Well, they are, but...
Right.
They hid behind some rocks and an oak tree and waited as one of the men approached them. They waited until the heavy-bearded 230-pound man was 30 feet from them.
Oh.
The lawmen aimed their rifles at the man, and Hensley ordered him to drop his rifle and unbuckle his revolver belt.
Oh, shit.
The man was Riley Dean and did as he was told.
Oh.
Hensley grabbed Dean and took him over to the ridge so that Kay could handcuff him to an oak tree.
Oh, shit. Right as Hensley left, Deputy McCardle heard the sound of footsteps come from the same direction where they had spotted Dean. He then saw Grat begin to approach over the hill and planned to wait until he was about 30 feet from him before making an arrest. Right before the deputy ordered Grat to drop his weapon, a dog appeared 10 feet from Grat and began barking at the lawman.
Uh-oh.
Grat and McCardle fired at each other almost simultaneously. Grat lowered his Winchester, fired, and jumped behind cover all in one quick motion. Damn.
McCardle's bullet flew straight over Dalton, but Grat's bullet stuck to tree within inches of McCardle's face and filled his eyes with bark. Grat dropped to the ground and rolled in a gulch about 10 feet away. He then quickly charged down the mountainside and tearing through the brush. Posse tried firing at Grat through the brush, but he managed to run the mile back to Elwood's ranch. Judson Elwood was plowing a 6-horse team when he heard the shots up the mountain. He began walking behind his plow when he felt a rifle poke him in the ribs.
Oh, well, that was Grat. And he said, you know what, Elwood? Unhitch one of these horses, which he did. And Grat rode away from the house, jumped the horse over an old rock fence, and began yelling and firing his revolver in the air so that Dean would know that he had escaped. He then rode away with the dog running behind of him.
Oh, running ahead of him.
Right. Grat first rode to Charles Owens' ranch across from Clovis Cole, where he stayed for a few days. Officers were watching lit at Clovis Cole's, but didn't think to watch Owens' place.
Hey, why not?
Grat then rode to a home 7 miles south of Livingston, the home of his friend, ex-supervisor W.W. Gray.
The weather conditions during his escape led him to becoming sick with the pneumonia, so he stayed near Livingston for several weeks, sleeping in Gray's cupola and watching the surrounding plains with an eyeglass for any sight of a posse. When Grant recovered, he was able to escape with the help of his brother Cole. They cut through Antelope Valley and skirted the desert town to San Diego County before taking the old trail to Yuma. The two left California in February 1892 and rode for 107 days before reaching Kingfisher.
No shit.
By the time Grat reached his mother's, he had lost 40 pounds. Cole had split up with Grat at Gila Bend, Arizona, after the two got in an argument in which Cole was trying to convince Grat not to join Bob and Emmett.
Right.
He's like, screw you, man. I'm out of prison now.
Well, Grat returned to Oklahoma in the spring of 1892, and shortly afterward joined his brother's gang.
Yeah.
Sometime later, the three dissatisfied members also returned, and new plans began to form.
All right.
Bill had returned to Oklahoma 7 months earlier, living at his mother's house near Kingfisher.
Look at him. He ended up getting out of jail, huh?
Yeah, he's like, I'm done. I ain't going back after that. After being found innocent by a Visalia jury, Bill, he was acquitted and released on the 15th of October.
All right.
He then sold the lease to his ranch in San Luis Obispo County, and then moved his family to his wife's parents in Livingston, California, and left for Kingfisher.
He said, you guys stay here, I'll be back,
Right.
maybe.
Though he did not participate in any of the holdups with his brothers, he acted as their spy and advisor.
Okay, well, still good for him. Got paid.
Conspirator? Conspirator?
Right. June 1st, 1892, the gang robbed the Santa Fe train at a small station called Red Rock at 10 p.m.
Red Rock.
Here, the Santa Fe had found out about the Dalton's plans and attempted to set up a trap for the gang, filling the train with heavily armed officers. Mm-hmm. They made the mistake of leaving the train dark, though, which made Bob suspicious, and the gang allowed the train go by. Oh, see? They then robbed the next train a few minutes later, securing about $50,000. Wow.
Oh, shit.
The $50,000, however, came to only about $1,800 after drafts and securities had been thrown out. Can't do nothing with them. After splitting the money amongst themselves, the gang soon realized they needed to rob another train.
Right. They thought they had a big old bust there. It wasn't.
Like, well, they probably could have done something with them, but it would have took months and months and months.
Forever. The night before the robbery at Red Rock, Judge Burford, U.S. District Attorney for Oklahoma, Horace Speed, and Deputy Marshal George Yost, son of Marshal Jacob Yost, the Dalton's former employer at Fort Smith. They were sitting in a hotel lobby in Kingfisher, where they were talking about the cases that would be in court the next day. Bill Dalton, he came into the hotel lobby and began to speak to Deputy Yost in a loud voice so everyone around could hear. 10 p.m., he looked at his watch and announced to Yost aloud that it was his bedtime, but that he would be back to have breakfast with him in the morning. It's my bedtime, but I'll be back. Breakfast in the morning.
After he left, the judge asked Yost who the man was, as he seemed educated and well-informed. Yost told the judge he was Bill Dalton, brother of the notorious train robbers, and the judge asked him to introduce them when he came to breakfast. Bill arrived for breakfast, like he said, and the four of them took to the same table. About 8 a.m., a telegraph messenger came into the room and handed the deputy marshal a telegram reporting the robbery at Red Rock by the Daltons at 10 p.m. the previous night. The deputy handed the message to Judge Burford, who read it out loud to the audience. As soon as the judge had finished, Bill announced, Well, I can prove that I was not there, and not by accident either.
Oh.
He said, I ain't stupid. You guys ain't charging me for this shit again, motherfuckers. But they can still get him for conspiracy because he clearly knew about
They
it.
can try, right? Oh, wow. This is interesting.
All right, the next robbery was July 14th at Adair, Oklahoma, near the Arkansas border. At the station, the gang took what they could find in the express and baggage rooms. They sat to wait for the next train on a bench on the platform, talking and smoking with their Winchester rifles across their knees.
Oh, that's nice.
When the train came in at 9:45 p.m., they backed up a wagon to the express car and unloaded all the contents. The 8 armed guards on the train all happened to be in the back of the train when it pulled in. They fired at the bandits through the car windows and from behind the train.
Oh, shit. Wow, during that gunfight, 200 shots were fired.
Damn.
None of the Dalton Gang was hit.
Wait a minute, 200 shots were fired? How many shots were fired in the Hollywood shootout?
Right.
Wasn't it just like 100 and something? 2,000 rounds. Holy shit.
Doctors W.L. Goff and Youngblood were sitting on the porch of the drugstore near the depot. Both men were hit several times by stray bullets. Dr. Goff was fatally wounded. Also wounded were Captains Kinney and LaFleur. But they recovered. The gang secured about $18,000. They were also accused of robbing a bank in El Reno, Oklahoma on the 28th of July. But this was based on little evidence, as no one identified any members of the gang. After the robbery at Adair, officials of the Missouri, Kansas, Texas Railroad offered a reward of $40,000 for anyone who could capture and convict the Dalton Gang, and a reward of $5,000 for the arrest of any of them.
All right, so 40 for the whole gang, huh? Is that bad? Bob Dalton had ambitions.
Oh.
He claimed, beat anything Jesse James ever did. Rob 2 banks at once in broad daylight.
No shit.
October 5th, 1892, the Dalton Gang attempted this feat when they set out to rob the C.M. Condon and Company's Bank and the First National Bank on opposite sides of the street in Coffeyville, Kansas. Why are there 2 banks right across the street from each other? But I guess Bob had planned the entire robbery. Emmett, however, was against the idea. He had gone to school at Robbins Corners near Coffeyville and knew several hundred people in town. Several hundred people?
Right.
He was afraid some of his friends would be hurt, but Bob assured him there would not be any shooting, and then it would all be over before anyone knew what happened. Well.
Well, you were wrong.
You were wrong. Francis wrong, Bob.
Well, the plan was that Bob and Emmett were to rob the First National Bank, while Grat, Broadwell, and Powers robbed the Condon Bank across the street. Emmett thought Grat would mess things up if he went alone with Powers and Broadwell, and thought they should trade places. This led to a heavy argument between Bob and Emmett, and created bitterness between them on the way to the robbery.
Well, it's already going wrong.
Right, they were pissed.
Well, Bob had planned for the gang to tie their horses to a post behind the Condon Bank where it was protected from the center of town by brick walls. They had not been to the town for several years, though, and the hitching post had since been removed during the street work.
Mm-hmm.
Bob would not allow Emmett to check out the town beforehand and feared that he would be recognized, so this was not factored into their plan.
Okay.
When they arrived, Bob had to think quickly. That's what I like about you, Bob. And decided instead to tie their horses in an alley across from the bank to the west near the city jail, which offered them little protection.
Right. That's pretty stupid. Wow. This is now known as Dalton Alley. Yeah. Morning of October 5th, gang emerged from the alley onto the plaza of Coffeyville. Storekeeper, who was sweeping the sidewalk a few feet away, noticed Bob, Emmett, and even Grat, who were wearing a fake mustache, and ran inside the store. In close order, the 5 crossed Walnut Street from the alley to the Condon Bank, holding Winchester rifles close along their legs. Grat, Broadwell, and Powers entered the Condon Bank. Emmett and Bob hurried across Union Street to the First National Bank. Oh, man. Here we go.
Street work was being done at the time, and one of the workers noticed the men dog-trotting across the alley with rifles and began to yell, "The Daltons are robbing the bank!" They already know who they are. Very soon, half the businessmen around the plaza knew what was going on, and the message quickly passed throughout town.
Holy shit.
Grat entered the Condon Bank and pointed his Winchester at the cashier, ordering his hands up, while Powers and Broadwell took positions at the door. Grat went to the back office, ordered the manager into the front, and then he handed the cashier a sack bag and ordered him to fill it with cash from the money drawer.
Ooh. Then, noticing the vault door was open, Grat ordered both of them into the vault, where the safe with all the gold. That's where that was. And when told to open the safe, the manager lied, telling Grat it was a time lock and that it would not open for another 10 minutes. Grat believed him and decided we were going to wait. He then ordered the bags of silver on the vault floor into his bag, containing $1,000 and weighing about 200 pounds. Yeah, that's way too much weight.
Well, meanwhile, Emmett and Bob had entered the First National Bank, covered the officers and 2 customers, and ordered the cashier, Thomas Aries, to open the safe with gold and cash. Put the gold in the sack, forced Aries in front of them as cover, and went out the front door. They had planned to meet with Grat and cross the plaza to the alley where they could make their escape, but word of the robbery had spread through town.
As they exited, an American Express agent opened fire with his revolver, and Bob and Emmett returned fire and left Aries on the sidewalk.
Oh, shit.
Did they hit him?
Wow, they turned around and went through the back door, carrying both rifles and sack bags, while taking 2 other bank employees as cover. Grat heard all these shootings from the express agent. He then decided the sack bag was way too heavy to carry and ordered the silver taken out, then stashed what cash he could fit in his coat pockets. 2 hardware stores in the town had meanwhile begun passing out guns to the local civilians, who began firing through the windows at Condon Bank. The 3 returned fire and held out, waiting for the time lock to open. Right. Several civilians were wounded in this very fighting.
I bet. Well, when Emmett and Bob went to the back door of the First National Bank, they were met by Lucius Baldwin, who had been watching the door with his pistol. Bob ordered him to drop the gun, and when he failed to answer, shot him with the Winchester, killing him.
Oh, man.
Bob and Emmett made their way to the end of the back alley into 8th Street, where they could hear the townspeople shooting at the Condon Bank. Outside of a drugstore across from the First National, George Cubine was standing with his Winchester aimed at the front door of the bank, awaiting the exit of Bob and Emmett. Bob shot him in the head, killing him.
Damn.
Cubine's partner, Charles Brown, was standing unarmed next to him and went to pick up his Winchester. As he lifted the rifle up, Bob shot and killed him as well.
Well, you shouldn't even touch that rifle, buddy.
Run away, buddy.
Wow, after being left on the sidewalk by Bob and Emmett, Thomas Ayers had run into one of the hardware stores and grabbed a rifle. He spotted Bob just as he had killed Brown and aimed his rifle at him from behind the store window. Bob saw Ayers from about 200 feet away and quickly shot him in the head. Ayers was not murdered, though, but he remained paralyzed for life.
It's a hell of a shot, 200 feet. In the midst of the shooting, Powers told Grat that he'd been hit in the arm. Grat ordered the employees to lay on the floor in the back office, and after receiving the signal from Bob, told Powers and Broadwell that it was time to go.
Let's go.
3 went out the side door, crouching and dashing across Walnut Street to the alley where they had hitched their horses. Bob and Emmett met Grat and the others in the alley, the sacks of money still over their arms.
Damn.
All right, now just get away, buddies.
Wow, as the Daltons made their way west down the alley towards the horses, Town Marshal Charles T. Connolly came through the library into the alley and then ran east towards the plaza without noticing the bandits behind him. Oh, no. Grat then shot him in the head and murdered him. Following behind Marshal Connolly was John Clore, still in the stable. Grat noticed him, but before he could aim, Clore shot him in the throat.
Oh, there goes Grat. Taking
Damn.
fire from the hardware store, Bob was hit in the head and the heart, killing him instantly.
Holy shit.
Powers tried to mount his horse, but shots from the store also killed him. Emmett was able to mount his horse unwounded to begin riding away, but after noticing Bob was hit, turned around and attempted to lift Bob onto his horse. Emmett was then hit in the back with a load of buckshot.
Oh.
Broadwell was hit several times, but managed to ride away. He was found 2 miles away, dead.
Holy shit.
Holy shit.
Damn. Bill Dalton and Bill Doolin had been waiting several miles away with extra horses to aid the gang's escape. After getting tired of waiting, they left, only to learn later of the fate of their fellow
What a
gang
bunch
members.
of pieces of shit. First of all,
Right.
they're your brothers, Bill.
Right.
Oh, tired of waiting. What if shit went wrong? What a bunch of
I'm
idiots.
pretty sure they heard all the shooting, though.
Think.
Grat and Bob Dalton, Dick Broadwell, Bill Powers, all murdered. Emmett Dalton received 23 gunshot wounds and survived. He was shot through the right arm, below the shoulder, through the left, right, and in some counts, hip and groin, and received 18 to 23 buckshot in his back.
Jeez.
Damn.
He was given a life sentence in the Kansas State Penitentiary in Lansing, Kansas, of which he served 14 years before being pardoned.
Oh, nice.
He moved to Hollywood, California, and became a real estate agent, an author, and an actor, and died in 1937 at age 66.
Oh,
Look at him.
shit.
Bill Doolin, Bitter Creek Newcomb, and Charlie Pierce, none of whom was at Coffeyville, were the only members left of the original Dalton Gang.
Damn.
Years after the robberies and his release from prison, Emmett said that the relentless pressure put on them by Deputy U.S. Marshal Heck Thomas as he hunted them was a key factor in his gang's decision to commit the robberies.
Wow.
They hoped that a big haul from the banks would allow them to leave the territory and escape Thomas's heat. All we need is just one more score.
Idiots. For a time afterwards, Bill Doolin and his partners operated under outlaw Henry Starr, who was a Cherokee Indian, hiding out about 75 miles northeast of Kingfisher, from where they made several raids. Doolin, Newcomb, Pierce, they visited Dalton's mother in Kingfisher to console her after her son's deaths. Brothers Lit and Bill Dalton were also visiting their mother, and Doolin proposed that they join his group to avenge their brothers. Bill agreed to join them and soon took part in several robberies. But Lit is like, in disgust, though. He was like, no. What are
You see what happened to all of our brothers?
Right.
You wanted to do it again?
Right. Well, Henry Starr was arrested in 1893 and held for trial at Fort Smith for the murder of a marshal.
As Doolin and Dalton were accepted as leaders of the gang, it became known as the Doolin-Dalton Gang, and also as the Wild Bunch. Dalton took part in several robberies with the Wild Bunch, including a gun battle on September 1st, 1893, at Ingalls, Oklahoma Territory, where 3 deputy U.S. Marshals were killed.
Ooh.
Eventually, Bill left Doolin to form his own Dalton Gang.
Really?
May 23rd, 1894, Dalton and his new gang robbed the First National Bank at Longview, Texas.
No, look at that shit. They like that First National, huh? During the robbery, 1 member of the gang and 4 citizens were killed in a shootout. This was the gang's only job.
Jeez.
After the gang separated with their share of the loot, Bill hid out with his family in a cabin near Elk Indian Territory. A posse assembled by U.S. Marshal S.T. Lindsay in Ardmore, Oklahoma, tracked him to the cabin and surrounded it on the 8th of June, 1894. Bill escaped through a window at the back of the house, but he was ran through a patch of corn, and he was shot and murdered by the deputies.
Litt, the last surviving Dalton brother, responded to a book written by his brother Emmett after the latter's death. Okay. Litt said that Emmett's book, When the Daltons Rode, in 1931, was largely fabrication. Emmett had denied accompanying Bob to California. On his deathbed, Emmett told Frank Forrest Latta that he had robbed a train in California and used the alias William McElhaney. That's a lot of not to publish the information until after his death.
Oh, okay, yeah.
How would Litt know what was true or not anyway? He wasn't riding with the damn guys.
They don't know shit. In her unpublished novel, Grat, Dalton's Ride, Eva Evans, wow, the daughter of the famous California outlaw Chris Evans, tells the story of Grat Dalton's escape from California after the Alila robbery. In it, she implied that her father was one who helped Grat escape from the Visalia jail, lending credibility to an earlier claim by Sheriff Gene Kay of this being true. Oh, look at that. Most of Sheriff Kay's information on Chris Evans came from his deputy, Perry Bird, who also happened to be Evans' brother-in-law, but Kay had other support and information as well.
Did he? All right, well, Chris Evans and Grat Dalton had become friends while working together in Tulare County during the summer of 1888 at the Granger's Bank of California's wheat warehouses in Tipton and Pixley. This would have been while Grat was on active duty as deputy marshal in Indian Territory, but Sheriff Kay claimed that Grat had told him that he had made 2 extended trips to California while serving as a U.S. Marshal.
Oh.
This was also confirmed by Litt Dalton, who had owned a saloon in San Miguel from 89 to 90. He claimed that Bob, Grat, Emmett had all made at least 2 trips to Bill's ranch in California during the time, and that at least one of them would show up to a saloon to get a gallon demijohn full of whiskey to bring back to the rest of the guys.
I bet. Sometime before the Alila robbery, but after Grat, Bob, and Emmett had all arrived at Bill's ranch in 1890, Grat had been rumored to have been in possession of rare $2 bills.
Damn!
This was only a few months after $2,000 in rare $2 bills had been stolen during a train robbery outside of Goshen, which is a robbery later attributed to Chris Evans and John Sontag. Grat had already been known in the San Joaquin Valley as a heavy drinker. He was a fighter and a gambler. So when Kay passed Grat on the street while in Modesto, his deputy George Whitty was easily able to recognize him. He said, well, that's Grat. That's Grat Dalton.
Kay stopped Grat in the street and said, "Say, I hear you have some $2 bills. I haven't seen one since I left Missouri. Let me look at one." Kay noticed the bills were perfectly new and asked Grat where he got them. He began to say something about a horse, but then became suspicious. Knowing Grat must have sold or hired a horse, Kay sent Whitty to investigate while he kept Grat in sight.
Oh, wow.
Kay hung around for Grat for a few hours and talked to him most of the time until Whitty returned.
Oh, shit. Whitty had gone to the livery stable in Modesto at the time being jointly run by Chris Evans and John Sontag, and learned that Grat had sold the horse to Evans, who in turn gave him the $2 bills. Oh, look at that shit. Evans, however, claimed that he had received the bills from Soul Sweet store after cashing a check there. He's
give it in the runaround.
Right. Kay apologized to Grat and he let him go. But upon visiting the Soul Sweet store, Kay learned that Evans had received gold instead of $2 bills.
See. Well, Kay did not think much of this until later. Well, you're a piece of shit.
Right. He's like,
deputy, right? When Perry Bird mentioned Chris breaking Grat out of jail, Kay believed Chris was either protecting himself by helping Grat break from jail or returning the favor for Grat protecting him.
Right.
Chris was also reported by a Visalia newspaper to have attended every day of Grat's trial for the Alila robbery.
Wow.
This was also confirmed by Litt Dalton, who had also attended the trial and claimed to have several hour-long conversations with Evans.
Nice. There has been much debate over the identity of the 6th man at Coffeyville, reported by witnesses who claimed was accompanying the gang as they arrived in town right before the robbery. The account given on October 7th, 1892, by Coffeyville's The Journal, is considered to be the most authentic on events that day of the robbery. Well, I mean, it was in their town.
Right.
The Journal acknowledged witnesses' statements then, and in a later article, that were two major unanswered questions. Who was the sixth man seen riding into town with the gang, and what happened to that man?
Well, the Journal then went to state that the other dead body proved to be that of Tom Evans.
Oh.
And marked number 6 on their map of the shooting area as where Tom Evans fell. And in 3 other references to him, the Journal called him Tom. For some reason, however, the body was buried as Bill Powers.
Oh.
While 6 men were confirmed to have been seen riding into town, other witnesses that day were all in agreement that upon reaching town, there were only 5 in the group. Maybe one, maybe, I don't know.
Wow. After the attempted robbery, Emmett was taken upstairs above the drugstore to be treated by Dr. Wells. In order to persuade the townsfolk not to hang him, he agreed to tell them everything they wanted to know. As Emmett reviewed the roles of the various participants, he concluded by saying, "Then there was Tom Evans down tending the horses." He then corrected himself, saying that he meant Bill Powers. No, I mean Bill Powers. How do you mean that? Two different totally people.
Right.
No one then or later asked him about the horse tending remark. But it couldn't have referred to Bill Powers because his role as an active participant is well recorded.
Right, he's dead.
All right.
Many newspapers at the time assumed that an unknown member of the gang escaped, since Emmett had originally attempted to convince his captors that he was Charles Dryden until he realized that this was hopeless. His word was considered by many to be of questionable. He's a fucking criminal.
Right.
If someone in the gang had escaped, there would be nothing gained by Emmett for admitting it. Right. It had been speculated by those seeking to answer the confusion that Bill Powers possibly escaped and it was Tom Evans who was killed, as originally reported, or that Tom Evans was just an alias of Bill Powers.
It could very possibly be. Well, Bill Powers was somewhat of a man of mystery. The Journal reported that no one has yet been found who knows him or anything of his antecedents or history. Who is this Bill Powers, they say? Tom Evans, on the other hand, was reported to be the fraternal twin of Outlaw Chris Evans, who at the time of the Coffeyville raid was a fugitive hiding out in the southern Sierra Nevada mountains. Chris Evans' family ridiculed reports of any such involvement or that Tom had been murdered. He's like, not my time. But otherwise, never disclosed his actual whereabouts because they don't even know. Mama's still waiting.
Well, Chris had continually attested his innocence, and any confirmation of his already rumored association with the Dalton Gang would have damaged his case. Right. A later report in the Visalia Times-Delta, a major newspaper in Visalia, California, attributed to a relative of Mrs. Evans, most likely Chris Evans' brother-in-law, Perry Bird, who was the deputy. He stated, Tom Evans killed at Coffeyville, Kansas, when the Dalton brothers made their famous raid on the banks of that town, was the twin brother of Chris.
Uh-oh.
There have been several other nominees suggested to be the sixth man in Coffeyville, including Bill Dalton, George Newcomb, Bill Doolin, all of which have never been confirmed.
All right.